Hello, Cosplay World. We're back with a two-part video section series thing. Yes, the blaster will be here on YouTube, and we're going to go through that. But if you're interested in seeing that awesome smoke-filled box, we're going to go to finalcosplaycore.com. It's going to be in the armory. If you're a subscriber, thank you for your support. And if you're not a subscriber, offer a free week-long trial when you see what's going on in the armory. Now, into this section, we're going to be going over the blaster. It's a bio weapon, kind of a genetically engineered weapon that is physically attached to the soldier's arm, and so draws energy from it. So it's going to fall into the monster category for me personally. So for a lot of my carvings, as you might imagine, I'm going to use pink foam. It's just very easy and light to carve with. It doesn't require a huge amount of time or effort or crazy tools to get it done. And it's just easy. How do I explain it? Like, you could do a casting with more money and time and maybe get more detail in when you're sculpting it out of the clay and then recasting. But that's considerably more work. And because this is only going to be made once, I usually don't go into resin casting unless I'm going to make several of the same thing over and over again. Actually, casting in general is my rule. Is I don't cast unless I'm going to make a bunch of it, because I can make it really reasonably durable without going through those processes. But as you can see, we're cutting it up with the saw there, and we're going into the details with the rasp. It's a regular everyday rasp. They're like $2, and you can get a set of them for like $10. It's really cheap. The only thing you might not typically find is the planer that helps out getting a uniform surface, but that's not totally necessary. It just makes my job a little easier with the tools on hand. That glue there is Insulation 78. It's a spray adhesive, and it works really well with pink foam. Actually, a lot of other foams. It's like made to glue together the insulation foam, so it's obviously good at what it's designed to do. So we're going to be kind of cutting out the section of the blaster where it might attach to the arm. It sits above the arm, and so we're going to figure out how we're going to make it look like it was ripped from the arm as a specimen. This is supposed to be a sample specimen, a scientific testing kind of scenario. It's like we need to figure out how to counteract these weapons or possibly use them for our own purposes. We do have some details there. Those are going to be the little nodes on the side. We can glue those on. The trick here is going to be making sure that that surface is fairly flat, so that when they glue them together, they're stuck together. There's no gaps. And then if there is gaps and I have to fill them in, it's kind of a pain in the ass. Okay, so you see me tracing out these details in marker. Because I'm going to be covering this up and basically cutting out any of these details, the marker's not going to come through. We're also going to be giving it a bit of a coat so that it doesn't bleed through to the paint and get ruined, as marker tends to ruin acrylic paint work, kind of does. But you can see we're going in with our wood burning tool, and we're very carefully tracing these lines out. It's going to melt the plastic, and you probably should be wearing a mask if you haven't been this entire time. But you want to be careful because this foam is very sensitive to heat, and only the slightest touch will do in achieving the goals of these lines. But they're very nice. I'm going to sand them up for wherever I kind of mess up, but there's my cat. He tends to try to get my attention whenever I'm doing something. Today he's actually, when I'm recording the audio for this, been a huge pain in my butt. It's like annoy Chris and the other cat day, and I've had to spray him several times because he's doing bad cat things. And here he has, as always, a love for any cup of water or any kind of water you might be having sitting out. He will attempt to drink it. So he still does that to this day. You have to be careful with that with him. So we have a few details that are going to be like the bone and the vessel, the power vessels, blood vessels, whatever anatomy is on the inside of the organism. We're going to be making that here, and the pipe is going to be substitute for bone. We're going to put some marrow in there with some pink foam. As you can see, I'm putting little splits. It looks like cracks or fractures in the bone. We're going to be heating it up. We're also going to be running the rasp around the back of it to create a texture, a wood-like texture, but I'm going to be heating it up a bit more so that it's giving more of a bone porous texture there. And you can see me working with the pumpkin carving knife. The reason for that is it's got a nice little point that can puncture into the foam without causing too much damage. A little bit more precise than the other saws I have on hand. We've got some PVC sheeting in there. That's going to represent kind of the flesh that was ripped off from the main arm. And we're going to be hiding all these little the tendons and whatever this might be. It's kind of my imagination at this point, whatever's in there. I imagine that there's a tube coming off the back of it, and so that's what I'm going to be doing, is having a little tube come off the back, and it's going to be somewhat flexible, like it would be able to move with the arm there. And we're going to be sticking all of this into the bioweapon, and right now we just kind of have to make sure it doesn't go anywhere. We're going to be doing this with a bit of plaster Paris and filling in any gaps. We're going to be giving a coat of plaster Paris to the overall surface to give it a bit more rigidity, and so that we can paint it up more evenly as well. It doesn't take much because I sanded it down fairly well. It took some good amount of time to go in with a sanding sponge and get a nice uniform even surface. So adding a huge amount of cake, a huge like a very thick layer, will not do me any good. This is just kind of to prep the surface for the paint and even out anything that might not have been sanded down to the right texture. But of course we're gonna have to go in and sand that up anyway. We want it to be reasonably smooth. The next layer is going to be gesso to give it a more shiny, smooth finish. The plaster Paris is typically just to even it out and make sure there's no lumps or bumps or things like that, or holes. Lumps, bumps, or holes. All right. We're gonna go in and make sure that the edges are nice and smooth and rounded. We don't want anything catching, and we want it to look kind of like carapace. Yeah, like carapace. And the inside there of the bioweapon is not going to need it so much because it's largely protected by the bits of plastic on the inside. It's very unlikely to get banged up. The whole piece is it's going to be a display piece, so it's not likely to take a whole lot of damage, but the inside there is particularly difficult because you have to, even as a display piece, you have to show that section, which is hard to see in the first place. The base color is going to be gray. Working from the art, quote unquote, at the time, it was a bit difficult because when this was going into construction, there's no canon color to this. In fact, it was based off a miniature, in which case there's lots of interpretations of the color. So I did my best based on the up-to-date renderings that were being sent and shown off for concept art. So it was kind of this bluish gray color you see in your typical alien, with some light blue illumination. We're going to do some basic light techniques around the area where it channels energy is where I'm going to go with this. It's supposed to shoot energy, as far as I can tell, from between the two points. It's not from the very tip, it's from between the two of them. It kind of like focuses between the two channels, and the channels then force it forward, as much as I can interpret in that way. The inside's going to have a lighter blue to maybe be a blue-based blood, possibly, or sinew, and just to give it a kind of definitely different tone, where you can tell that there's an inside versus an outside. And here we go. We're going to do some dry brushing to bring out some of the details here. A bit of the tan and the brown. We're going to be going over this again, but just to highlight where the raised and dark areas are. And there was a bit of a murky. The original art isn't super crisp. It's not cartoonish. It's very watercolory, so there are not going to be super hard lines anywhere, as far as I can tell. Even the lines we engrave into the piece are somewhat dulled. The lighting is not super sharp anywhere, or the colors are not super sharp anywhere in this piece. So the areas that are going to have a bit of light, we're going to be adding lighter tones around them to give them the effect as if they're casting light onto the piece itself, giving the simulation that there is light. There's no LEDs or wiring or anything. It's all simulated color. But that's mostly what we're going to paint it up with. We're going to hit it with some gloss, some varnish, matte varnish, and then we're going to move on to the box. If you enjoyed this, we have the box, the case, in the armory for you to enjoy. We're going to go through the construction there. If you're interested, check out a trial. Hey, if you like this video, check out finalcosplaycore.com for the second part. See you there.